Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Start of August. I love the start of new months. This year been flying by, and every single theme that we've done, I've loved them. One of the issues there, it means I've got a lot of pens which have still got ink in them. At the last count, there was about 70 of them. So I want to start using up some of these pens. Now this month, it's all about using those up, or at least some of them. So I thought to myself, well, what can I call this month? And I came up with loads of different names. But to be honest, most of them, when I actually thought about it, they didn't sound very polite. So what I've done is I've come up with the theme of Use Me Up. It's all about using up those pens, getting rid of the ink that's in them, and then cleaning them out. I will not be filling any of the pens. Once it runs out, that's it. It's cleaned out, and I move on to another pen. So hopefully this month, I'm hoping we might get through maybe 10 different pens. I just want to run down the number of inked pens that I have. So join me now, down on the mat. Let's jump straight on in and take a look at the 6 pens I'm going to start the month with. So here we are down on the mat. Let's take a look at the pens I'm going to be using during August of 2022. The first pen, the Moonman T5. I think this is a really pretty looking pen. Hopefully as I can turn it around, you can see some of that purple coming there in the body. This pen, one of the things I like about it, it's got this gorgeous ink window. It's not very big, but it's functional, so I can see the ink levels. Now, I've had this inked up since February, so I want to get rid of the ink in here so I can start using other pens and not feel guilty for not using this. So we've got here a Moonman or MaJohn. I'm going to call it a Moonman. T5. This has got a medium nib. It cost me 27 Australian dollars. Not expensive, not cheap, bit down the middle of the range. The ink by Cult Pens, and it's a little pip. It's actually the same ink as I used in the titles, and one thing that I like about this ink, let me just see if I can get to show you in the title. Well, even there on my writing, it's got this gorgeous gold sheen over the purple of the ink. Looks so nice together. Drying times, so immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Still smudging a teeny bit there at 1 minute. On the line above, I'll do a 2-minute test. After 2 minutes, wow, still smudging a tiny little bit. So I think if you're left-handed or you want to be turning pages quickly, which I quite often do, I want to get onto the next page, you need to think about this ink and maybe have a blotter with you to dry it off. Otherwise, you could be waiting ages for it to dry. But anyway, it's the Moonman T5. Just going to turn it around one more time. I really like the look of this pen. I love this subtle colouring. The second pen for this month. So this pen I inked up in August last year. Yep, that's right, August last year. I'm quite embarrassed about that. This is the Cross Bailey Light, and it's in this grey colour. I know it's a very uninteresting colour. It's just grey. It's nice though. It means I can use virtually any colour ink I want. The cap pulls off. It reveals this teeny tiny nib. Not sure if that's number 5 or even a little bit smaller. I mean, it's a nice looking nib. There's a bit of decoration on there. Just looks really small. The pen as a whole feels very, very thin. And I think that's one of the reasons I haven't used it. I do prefer chunkier pens. Got a cartridge converter in there. See, that's still about half full. Let's just do a writing sample with this. So we've got here Cross Barely Light. This has got a medium nib and it cost me 30 Australian dollars. The ink, it's by Diamine and it's violet. I love the colour of this ink. My problem, and again one of the reasons why I think I've not really been using this pen, yes it says it's a medium nib, to me it's more like a fine, and my preference over the last year has been for broad nibs, so really nice juicy wet lines, whereas this, you know, it looks, I say, like a fine line to me. It's writable though, it's a bit small, can be used unposted. It will post if I want to, doesn't feel back heavy. Drying times, so this is immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, tiniest bit of a smudge, but that was nice and dry. So here we have the Cross Barely Light with Diamine Violet. Pen number 3. Let me just move this page up slightly. There we go. Pen number 3. This one is by Moonman or MaJohn. This is the P135. Yes, I know this is, I'm going to call it heavily inspired by, I don't like using the term cloned, of a much more expensive pen. Still looks pretty though. I like on this cap here where we've got all this decoration. Just adds a little bit of interest. Not so keen on the body, you know, it's just like a maybe a dark purple colour, but it doesn't look overly exciting. Again, it's a smallish nib, and this nib is hard to tell. It's got the tiniest bit of a turn up at the end. Very hard to really see it. It's another one, cartridge converter. It's very thin. About as thin as that Cross Barely Light, I would say. And it's comfortable enough to use unposted. I can post it. This cap feels very heavy, so posted it's actually uncomfortable to use. So we've got here a Moonman P135. The nib is a fine. As I say, I don't want to call it a foodie, but it's got a teeny bit of an upturned nib. For this pen, I paid 45 Australian dollars. And I inked this up in May of this year, so not been inked up for too long, but I still want to use it up. The ink by Diamine, and it's all the best. So this ink was day 25 of the 2021 ink event calendar. It's a nice ready coloured ink, and hopefully this will catch. There is a bit of a nice sheen to it as well. Not really seeing that coming through much today, but on some of my test writing you can really see it. Let's take a look at drying times. This is immediate. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, again, teeniest bit of smudging, but not enough for me to do that 2-minute test. Now, I'd like to point out here, this is a fine, and I would say, to my eye, the line on this is ever so slightly wider than what I see on that Cross Barely Light. And as I've said, the Barely Light, that's a medium. The ink, as it's dried, I can now see some of that gold sheen coming through, so hopefully that'll capture it. But I think really with the wideness of the line, it's hard to see any character in this writing. But this, it's the Moonman or MaJohn P135. Sticking with Moonman, the next pen, again last inked up in May of this year, because that was Moonman month. This is the Moonman M800. This is in the purple colour. I love the colouring of this. It's transparent, you can see through there. There's the converter. Just going to turn this around. I think this looks ever so pretty. Number 6 size nib. I love the nib on this. It's easy to change. One of my other M800s, I've got a broad Yoho nib. Wow, that's such a wet writer, such a joy to use. Cartridge converter, as I said. There we go, there's the cartridge. It was inked up near the end of May, so there's still a fair bit of ink left in there. So we've got here a Moonman. M800 with a fine nib. In terms of cost, this one was 52 Australian dollars. The ink by Diamine, and it's violet. So the same ink as I've got in that Cross Bailey Light. Drying times, immediate. 10 seconds. Wow, that's almost dry after 10 seconds, isn't it? 30 seconds. Still getting something coming off it. Let's go for the 1 minute test. After a minute, tiniest of little smudges. Now the nib on this is the variant that comes with a bottle nib. There is a version with a Moonman nib. I'm not going to be using that this month, but I do find the Moonman nib is very stiff to use. But this is the Moonman M800, and that's got Diamine Violet. Just going to reposition the paper for the last 2 pens. There we go, we've got plenty of room there now to write with. Pen number 5 for this month. I'm embarrassed to say this pen, it's been inked up since the 23rd of May last year. So, well, about 15 months. And it's such a shame because it's actually a pen that I like. And this is the PenBBS 487 in the corduroy pattern. There we go, I'm just going to turn that around so you can see the pattern. This is a magnetic filler. You can't really see it because of the ink, but up here there's a wide disc, maybe about 7mm wide. And to fill it, what you're meant to do, you take off the cap. There's a magnet in there. There we go. Ah, there's the disc. I was lying. I thought it's right up here, not down here. Then that's meant to drag down and then drag back up. Worked the first time I got the pen. Never worked since. Really is bad. And it's quite disappointing because I bought it for the fill-in mechanism because I thought, well, that's unusual. So all I do with this pen is I eyedropper fill it from a syringe. I have had another issue with this. Up here, there was a cap. I don't know how, but that came out and I lost it. So we've just put a bit of glue in there to seal it. Some of that glue's come out again. Where we've got that magnetic mechanism though, that seals it anyway, so I'm not overly worried. So this is a PenBBS 487. The nib on this is a fine. Cost-wise, 54 Australian dollars. The ink is by Diamine, and it's Oxford Blue. I think one of the reasons I've not been using this is a nice dark blue ink, and when I'm looking at it on the camera preview, I can see a lot of blue. Sat here looking at it with my eyes direct, it looks nearly black, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've not used it. I think the ink is just too dark for this pen. Before this, I had Colourverse Supernova in there. Loved that as a combination. So I think what I may do is when this eventually runs out, I'll be cleaning it out for a while, but I think what I'll do is try something like maybe Diamine Eau de Nil or even Diamine Asa Blue, sort of paler blue colour, and see if I like that better. Drying times, we've got immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Yeah, just a tiny smudge there after a minute, so I won't bother with that 2-minute test. This is the PenBBS 487 and Diamine Oxford Blue. The last pen, for the start of the month at least. This, I actually put ink in it only a couple of weeks ago. It's one of my newest pens, and I've only recently released the unboxing for it. So I thought, well, I'm going to put ink in here. I'm going to use it again. And this is by Asvine, and it's the V169. Now, as you can tell, although there's ink in there, there isn't that much. It seems to be only maybe the bottom couple of centimetres has got actual ink in it. Unusual pattern this. I'm not sure if I'm actually happy with this metal cover. It feels very sharp at times, and I can feel it catching on my fingers. It looks different though, doesn't it? This is a vacuum filler. So again, interesting filling mechanism. Let's do some writing. So here we've got the Asvine V169. This has got a medium nib. This is the most expensive pen of the month, 55 Australian dollars. The ink by Diamine, and it's Eau de Nil. I like this ink, and I think, let's use the cap here, I think it's quite a good match, to be honest, with that material. Drying times, 1 minute. Oh, it's not, is it? It's straight away. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Now, I'm not going to be refilling this month, so I'll go on to the line below. 1 minute. It's still really wet. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Look at that. That's still wet. I think this is down to the pen. You know, after 2 minutes, look at that. If I go to here now, this is using the same Oxford optic paper. This is when I did my first impressions. Look at how we get the feather in there. And again, I know it's very, very light because it was quite a light ink. But you can still see there how wet it was. If I fetch in this is my cheaper notebook. So please ignore a lot of the scribbles. It's what I use to do a lot of my personal thoughts and testing. This here is after I'd filled the pen. Wow, it just was feather, feather, feather. After a couple of hours, it was still feathering. So I tried out some other inks and pens, had no issues with feathering, so it wasn't to do with the actual page, it was the pen. This is such a wet combo. So this is the Asvine V169 with Diamine Eau de Nil. Just going to get the paper out of the way, then I'll fetch the pens back for one final look. So here we have the 6 pens that I'll be starting August of 2022 with. We've got the Moonman or MaJohn T5 and Cult Pens Little Pip, the Crossbeardy Light with Diamine Violet, the Moonman P135 with Diamine All the Best, the Moonman M800 with Diamine Violet, the PenBBS 487 with Diamine Oxford Blue, and the Asvine V169 with Diamine Eau de Nil. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. How many inked pens do you currently have? Do you have this problem of always putting new pens into the rotation or changing the inks out? So drop a comment down below. What tips do you have for not ending up in this situation with so many inked pens? Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment. Well, it just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.